addressing, DHCP, ports, how do communications actually. We'll talk about more supporting services when it comes to those networking services that we have. We'll talk about things that they use more in depth. And excuse me, I'm still dealing with my cold, but I'm gonna try to push through. So the first thing we're going to talk about is file servers and print servers. A lot of times in the business, we can have different servers set up and different printers set up in the building. And what we want to do is actually give access to everybody who has um, a username and password on our domain. Now, normally, if you go to your file explorer in Windows and you can see how many drives you're connected up to, sometimes these can be servers, right? So this USB drive that I got manually connected could be a particular storage server that's out there that you actually can put files on there and save it to. Um, but you can also have network servers that may not be within that building that's networked to it. And this is normally connected via IP addressing. Now, the print server, on the other hand, it used to be shown right here in Windows, I want to say 7 and 10. It used to be that way, but then it changed up in 11. 11 is more geared towards mobile devices and apps and having tiles and having that user interface to be more of a they want to make a seamless transition from your phone to your desktops. And so that's why Windows 11 kind of looks a lot different than 10. Anyway, the the printer and the printers that we normally have that would show up around the hard drives are now in their own window. And getting a new Windows machine, you'll see some of these default printers here, right? That don't really connect to anything like the Microsoft Print PDF. You probably got this on your computer. You can remove this if you want. I don't bother with it, but in a work setting, a lot of people want to be they probably don't need to be set up with the hard drives, but they probably do need to be set up with the new printer, if especially if they're in a new part of the building. Maybe they are a new employee and they need to print. So we need to make sure that we can go in there and if the printer's networked, then we can go in and get that IP address from the printer and sync that PC up to it. Typically, going back to hold on, because I had that open for a reason. It was a nice. Okay. Typically, we use the SMB port 445, and we typically use this port to see those objects out there on the network. We also use NetBIOS and FTP. Being able to see those actual, being able to have these ports allows us more functionality with the devices on our network. So it's very vital that if you can, maybe you could see the printer on the network, but you can't actually send commands to it, then we need to look into if we're blocking that port. Now, what I say, is there some company that's probably blocking these ports? Probably, yeah, maybe, but in most cases, they're not. These should be automatically set to be enabled. Um, I haven't ran into a place where they haven't been, and so hooking computers up to printers and file servers should not be an issue. Web servers, we typically go to web servers all the time, right? And this is where we're talking about web server addresses. Um, but typically and often you have different devices that have their own web server or web page that we would like to go to. Now, we typically use HTTP and HTTPS to communicate with different web servers, web pages. So make sure that you understand that HTTP is on port 80 and HTTPS is on 443. Now, We use a uniform resource locator or a URL to put into our category up here in order to then take control of DNS in order to send us to a web server. Okay. Um, these could be, like I said, it could be a typical already go to with your favorite application. But in the case of, let's say, information here has a web page that actually see a particular page. Now, say how my printer was showing up here in the networking side of it, where it's actually giving off a SSID, so someone could actually connect to it. We either talked about that on Tuesday or Monday, but either way, um, this is where I would go in to actually change those settings. Now you can go into it on the physical computer, I mean a printer, and actually go through the settings and see if you could change it there. Um, but this gives you more functionality, especially if you're not near that printer at the time. You should be able to get to this site. Well, in this case, I'm able to get to this site and be able to look at certain things on that computer. So let's go to network real quick, and we can see different things that we talked about on Tuesday, such as host name, IP address that my router gave it. Remember when we talked about the MAC address? The different thing about this MAC address here is that it doesn't have the dashes in between, right? But remember, MAC addresses are particular to any device that you have on the network. Okay, so even if it's a network card or a video card, if it comes from a manufacturer, it's probably going to have some type of, think of it as a serial number that's particular to that device. That MAC address is that. We go in deeper. We could see that. How do we get our IP address? We got it through DHCP, right? Automatically giving out IP addresses. So that means after a certain amount of time, I will give that IP address back, or my printer will give it back to this router, and it will either get a new IP address or it might get the same one back. I haven't set it as a static one. Don't really see the need to. Now, it is on my mesh network, which is the Metro router network. Um, so I'm surprised we still connected and we haven't dropped. So if I drop, I apologize. Um, we talked about IPv6. So real quick, from a security standpoint, you see all this information here. What's the glaring? Is there anything glaring that stands out to you guys from a security standpoint? Is there anything that stands out on this web page that stands out to you guys that's from a security standpoint? Like you're looking at it and saying, you know what, that's not right. That's not supposed to be like that. And it's I'll just go ahead and
Is it?
say it again.
I was gonna ask, is it the gateway? But I don't.
The gateway, no, ma'am. It will be up here in the URL. You see right beside it, it says not
Not
secure.
Not
secure. Yeah.
secured. Oh yeah.
And
I was
so that
actually
means that
asking.
we're on HTTP. If we're not secure, then which HTTP are we using? Are we using port 80 or port 443?
443.
Not secure.
So it's port 80. Yeah. Wait. I thought it was port
Right.
443 for not secured.
443 is for HTTPS, and that S is for secure. So this will be the main thing that sticks out. And I would say that if anybody can get on my network, or you remember how I said it was showing up over here, connected to, if they can connect to it via Bluetooth or something like that, maybe they could see this address and they can go to it via the web. And now possibly see more information than I would like for them to see. That's from the security standpoint. Now, from the A plus standpoint of it, we're looking at it like this tells us a lot of information, and we're able to, if we're looking at it from an IT standpoint, we can tell when the cartridges go down. We could tell if it needs an update. You remember when I kept, harping on firmware updates? These don't happen often, but this is where you will go and check those to see if we do have a update for the firmware. The firmware is not going to update whenever the software updates comes out. These are typically off schedule, and you would have to just kind of I would check for them every quarter, right? Every quarter of the year. But A plus style wise, this is a good thing to have in as far as being able to monitor what's on your network, and then see if you had a ticket come in and someone says that this printer is offline, you could come in here and see that to see if it's connected or what's the issue. So if you're troubleshooting, you can see, okay, now my printer is online. Maybe it's the client that I need to go in and check in with them. Now, real quick, to make sure that I turn that piece off, that piece that actually broadcasts out, I can go here to Wi-Fi direct, I think, yep, and go to edit settings and turn it off here. But I didn't turn this on. This is defaulted to be on. So I could turn it off here, hit apply, and now I should not see it doing a broadcast out. So just real quick, when it comes to cybersecurity, when we were talking about having those configurations, those are the type of configurations you will give the networking team or the IT team those directions. Say, hey, we need to disable the Wi-Fi direct on all printers in the company, and it's their job to go in and do that particular thing, and then you go back and check, right? But anyway, moving on. So remember 443 HTTPS. We're talking about any typical web browser that's out there. Let me go to my favorite one. And now Chrome is not really showing the lock anymore. You have to click on these little toggles and see that this connection is secure. And when you see that the connection is secure, then you know that you're operating on port 443. Okay. But if you don't see that, if you see something that's, is saying not secure, you're probably not saying that not saying that, you are vulnerable for anything, but you are standing to, if you put anything sensitive into that web page for HTTP, then it can be seen for anybody who's sniffing the network. Okay. So just keep those things in mind. Digital certificates and digital authorities. Now, I shouldn't have closed that out, but those are the people, and we talked about this in Security Plus a little bit. Those are the people who are giving out those type of certificates that lets you have this certificate right here. So when they says that the connection is